Hey, it's Matthew from Systema Defense Tactics. I'm going to show some mobility work that we learn in Systema. First of all, I'm going to start off with some relatively basic groundwork. So first of all, I'm going to do what's known as the hip pivot. So how hip pivot works is I can do a 180 spin, or I can do a 360 spin. Now essentially what I'm doing is, come a little bit closer, I'm putting my weight onto one of my hips. So here I'm shifting my weight onto my right hip. I'm using that as a pivot point. So it's not so much my hip as it is my hip and upper portion of my femur. I'm spinning around. And then when I get to about this point, the point of balance is now moves across my glutes, and then I shift onto my other side, on my other hip. So when you're first starting, you probably just want to do half circles. So bring my feet to where I'm looking, and then I can go back the other way. But after a while, you want to go into doing full circle. So that's hip pivot. Another relatively basic movement is called the spindle. So how a spindle looks is here. And the other way. So the concept of the spindle is I'm using the movement of my arms and my legs to generate the momentum for the spin. So I could spin from side to side using my core and turning myself over. It requires quite a bit of tension. Doing the spindle, it's almost as if the movement of my hands and my legs generate the force for the roll. Speaking of rolls, I'll show you some Systema rolls. So when we start teaching people Systema, one of the unique things about Systema is how we roll. So a Systema roll from kneeling looks like that. Once you get good at rolling, you can roll from standing, and you should be relatively comfortable alternating from left to right, or from right to left. So when I'm teaching a Systema roll, I teach people it from nice down, kneeling position, nice down and low. I'm going to take, you can choose which side I'm going to roll on. I'm right-handed, so it's more natural to roll on my right. I'm going to take my arm out, I'm going to turn upside down. I'm going to think about putting my head through this big hole here. So I start to do that motion. The contact point is my shoulder to the ground. I bring my chin into my chest. I tend to find that if I do it very slowly, I have a bit of a right bias and I don't go straight. But when you do it with a little bit of speed, a little bit of momentum, you tend to go straight. So a Systema roll would be different from, say, a judo roll, where in a judo roll you're going across your back diagonally and not incorporating that hand out. I find that placing that hand out allows me to get nice and straight with my roll. And technique for a Systema roll, sometimes I'll bend over at the waist, I'll let my student drape themselves over me, and essentially they're just flopping to the ground and getting the feel for it. So if we were to pretend this was someone bending over, I would slump myself over them, come down in nice slow time, and come in contact with the ground, and just get a feel for it. So that's good when we start to raise ourselves, go from a kneeling to a low squat, half squat, and then from standing. You can get more advanced than that if you want. You can start doing Systema roll from an elevated maybe off a small box. And the end goal is you want to be able to do a Systema roll from standing. Should be able to come back up into fighting stance. You can roll backwards using Systema roll, or sorry, I should say, there's also a Systema backwards roll. So when I start teaching this to my students, we lay down, I think about which shoulder I'm going to go over. This time I'll go with my left. I just start doing a leg raise, and I let the leg raise carry my leg, and I stand up. So how that would look from standing is, maybe I'm in a confrontation with someone, they shove me, I lose my footing, I fall over backwards. Hopefully I can get back up. So most Systema practitioners have what we call our basic movements or basic exercises. Most Systema practitioners have 4, which is their sit-up, their push-up, their squat, and their leg raise. I'd like to incorporate a 5th one, which is sprawl. Now, I'll give you an example of how a Systema sit-up is different from a regular sit-up. So, regular sit-up, in Systema we like to have our legs straight, and we like to come up into a nice sitting up posture at the end of the sit-up. Now, if I was to do this without using Systema principles, it's I lower myself down, and I bring myself up, and it's all with the core. I'm engaging my core muscles, and that's lowering me and raising me. So there's a lot of tension in the core. So how a Systema sit-up differs is I ever so slightly twist myself to one side, and I'm thinking about the point of contact between me and the ground being, starting off being sort of like my left kidney area. It's going to run up to my shoulder blades, then going to loop from left to right, and then run down to my opposite side kidney. That's if I'm choosing to do it on my left hand side. So how that looks is, in slow time, I come down, I'm twisted, I'm over exaggerating it, but I'm twisted to the side. Point of contact comes up to my shoulder blades, I come across, and then I sit up. Now if you do it slowly, it's a little bit challenging, but the idea is you do it, essentially you fall into it, and you use the momentum of your fall to get you back up. So, and the other side. Now I'll probably use as 1/10 amount of energy that it required me to do a traditional setup. So if someone gave you the challenge of do 100 sit-ups, you can do it the Systema way, and you probably feel like you've done 10 regular ones. And how this can translate later on to other Systema work is, I'll use this wall over here for example. Imagine someone's come up and given me a big shove in the chest. Throwing me back into the wall, instead of just hitting the wall and being splattered, I can come into contact with the wall, roll, and I'm okay. And that naturally moves my body in such a way that that hand wants to come up. So I get shoved, hand comes up to greet them. So I've shown you a couple of different Systema mobility exercises, hip pivot, Systema sit-up, Systema roll. What I like to do at the first 5 minutes of my class with students is I say to them, okay, you've just walked in, you're probably a little bit stiff from last night's exercise or whenever it is you last had exercise, went to the gym or whatever. Let's let our bodies know that we're going to be doing some work for the next hour and a half. And I tell them, okay, 5 minutes, free movement, but you're not allowed to come any higher than a low squat. A low squat, or you can call it a duck walk, would be here. This is the maximum height I'll let my students come to. And the extra challenge is 5 minutes of continuous movement, no pauses. So it's not that I do a roll, I have a little think, okay, I'll do a push-up. Do a push-up, there's a pause. Okay, I'll do a sit-up. Instead it's one continuous movement. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be something that you learnt in Systema. It can be any movement from anywhere. As long as it flows and doesn't get the rule of coming up higher than a low squat. And that's what Systema mobility looks like. That's just a little sneak peek. I'm going to endeavour to put a few more videos up on my Instagram. So if you want to check me out on Instagram, Systema Defence Tactics, I'll have a link in the description. Thank you.